And welcome into our overtime segment here at SportsSource.tv. It's brought to you by, right there, Smokin' Joe's, SmokinJoesTobacco.com. I'm a man who enjoys a fine cigar. And if you are, you need to get to Smokin' Joe's. They got two great locations. One is on Paper Mill, that's the original store, and then another one down in Alcoa that's really nice. The whole place is a humidor. It's a walk-in humidor. Great selection. Best prices you'll find in town, guaranteed. Mike Hicks and his family do a tremendous job. Smokin' Joe's. All right. I'm here with Smokin' Josh, Smokin' Vince, and Smokin' Chuck. Smokin' Vincenzo.
There you go.
I wanted to throw that out there. All right. Some questions that were thrown in by some viewers, stuff we didn't get to talk about in the show today. First one, are you worried about so many injuries with this team? Injuries were an issue last year with some of your biggest guys going down. We talked about Galden, Majit. Are you worried that you're already being bitten by the injury bug? A lot of these guys being held out for precautionary reasons. And a lot of these guys like Jalen Hurd and Alvin Kamara who are out there aren't really being used 100% for precautionary reasons. Concern that you're starting to lose guys like Jalen Reeves-Maybin or Dylan Bates in the spring when you are trying to get on the same page with a new defensive coordinator, et cetera. So, again, simplifying it. Injuries a concern for you or no?
It's not a huge concern for me. Like Jalen Reeves-Maybin, sure you'd love to have him out there, especially with a new defense coordinator, but that's a guy you trust will be ready to go in August and September as long as he's healthy. I'd say the same for Derek Barnett. I don't know that he needs one practice to still go out and be one of the top pass rushers in the SEC. I do think what they're doing is building depth, and in the last couple of years, when Kurt Magid goes down, you have more concern how you replace him. I think now with recruiting over the last couple of years, you're more likely to be able to replace him. Last year, trying to replace Rashaan Galden was probably a bigger problem than it would be heading into 2016.
Yeah, not a huge concern for me. I think at the wide receiver position it is, because that's a position that hadn't been able to stay healthy. A lot of those guys that are in spring practice right now haven't been able to stay healthy, and you don't have Josh Malone here in the spring. So that's the one area. But they also have 4 new guys coming in that can maybe contribute. You're having to cut practices short because of all the reps that the players are having to take, especially on the defensive line.
Yes.
And another one is running back. That might be another area, because you're pretty thin there, even though you're elite with Hurd and Kamara.
Right, you are elite, and John Kelly has looked pretty good so far, but there is a drop-off.
Right.
I mean, that's no knock on Kelly. You're talking about 2 standout SEC backs. He can be a good back, may turn into a standout back, but right now there is a line between the top 2 and John Kelly. So, and then after that, you got question marks.
To me, it's not quite a concern yet, but there is a definite awareness. You know, when you heard the Dylan Bates thing,
question, man.
I got to do it at least once. Yeah. When you heard the Dylan Bates thing, didn't you just want to, almost cry?
I feel bad for him. Yeah, he's not had a great start to his career.
I'm thinking, is there another position he can play? Is there something about the position, and last year about the injuries guy? How many were those non-contact things? That's what I think you would start to worry about a little bit if you start having some more non-contact injuries. Hey, we need to do something here. Pull back on that.
One thing in terms of what they're trying to do, and you're not going to see a full scrimmage at the spring game. A lot of teams don't do it anymore anyway. But one of the issues you run into is how much hitting are you allowing? Because we've seen that go both ways in the SEC. Georgia was a great example. One year they said, we got so many guys hurt last spring, we're not going to hit much in this spring. And that was the year that Mark Richt had a losing record. It was the one year I think he finished 6-7 down there. That was the year they didn't hit. So Gary Pinkel had the same thing happen at Missouri, and he came out and said, we're not going to hit. And I thought, you are doomed, because look at what happened to Georgia. His is the exception to the rule, I think, because that team came out and still won the SEC East with a good defense that no one expected to be good, even though they didn't hit much. So are you concerned based on the Georgia model, or are you feeling okay based on the Missouri model that you're probably not hitting as much as Tennessee's coaches would like to if they had everyone healthy and full depth?
I don't think they're cutting back. I don't think they're changing a lot of what they're doing in terms of how much they're hitting. What they're having to tweak is the length of the practices. So I think they're going heavy, they're going normal. Now maybe they're dialing it back a touch with a thud as opposed to going live maybe as frequently. But overall, I don't think they're dialing it down so significantly that it changes you or impacts you during the season.
Well, if you're not letting guys, you got a lot of guys who they're not going, even if Jalen Reeves-Maybin had been in there, they weren't letting him go full speed all the time, knocking around shoulders. Same with Hurd, same with Kamara. So I think I am a little concerned if you can't hit as much. And whether or not you look at that as we're not going to hit in practice today, or we're not running as many plays overall, or this guy, and this guy can't be touched and can't hit somebody. Either way, to me, that's boiling down to fewer hits. And I have a concern with that because the only team I've seen do it is Missouri.
Well, and overall, I like what they have in the secondary. I like the depth and the athleticism. But some of the guys moving to safety, Rashawn Golden, Micah Abernathy, they're not big guys. You're not
No, it's
talking about
170.
Yeah, below 180. And
178.
Mike Abernathy, he's been a running back corner, now playing safety. So that might be a concern. But they also have more depth. You're going to have Tyler Bird arrive in the summer. You're going to have Nigel Warrior arrive in the summer. So you're going 3 deep where you really like the athletes you have at safety.
And I think, too, John, I would look at the type of personnel, and did you have concerns about tackling overall, or did you think there were some issues there last season that, hey, this is a point of emphasis? We really need to work on tackling. And maybe you do some, but I'm a big believer in spring is more about experimenting with some players, trying to find some depth, and not risking injuries. And then when you get into July and August, okay, now it's all hands on deck. Let's go.
Vince, you wanted to point out the fact that, yes, Bob Shoop has adapted the terminology. He's using Tennessee's terminology rather than coming in and making everyone learn his terminology that he's used to. But you are quick to point out anyone who's expecting a bizarro defense probably going to be disappointed. What they're going to see is a more aggressive defense, but it's not going to be something like coming from the planet Mars.
Yeah, it's not a complete change. It is the philosophies, it's the beliefs of what Bob Shoop has done in the past. It's the aggressive play. It's the versatility as well. I asked him this week, do you believe in strong safety, free safety, or left and right? We've seen a lot of left and right at safety in the past. He still believes in strong safety, free safety, but those guys with an aggressive defense, if they blitz more, what happens? One of your safeties has to come over and cover the slot. You have to be in coverage. That's why I think Golden and Abernathy, corners that can cover, can work in those spots. So those are the kind of things that we're seeing from a Bob Shoop defense that we're learning, and have not necessarily an install of a brand new defense.
And the players sound like they like it too. I mean, here's the thing: you want to get after the quarterback, and you've got a couple of these guys who said yesterday that, we're coming from everywhere,
right.
And that keeps the defense. Yeah, you hear that all the time. Everybody always says they're going to do it, but that is the kind of thing that excites the defense, I'm sure.
And one of the things I liked, I heard about the Smurf defense, where he's trying to get his 4 best pass rushers on the field for defensive linemen and let them go and just see what happens. I like stuff like that for making
There
it
were
fun.
a couple of examples. You go and look at this guy, some of the stuff that's online about him where the entire defensive line drops into coverage and all the linebackers and a safety blitz. So he throws the kitchen sink at opposing offenses at times. The trick is, people see that on YouTube. He may do that twice a year,
Right.
Yeah.
rather than, wow, we're going to see that 10 times a game. It's like, well, no. But they do bring it from all over the place. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive this defense is and how much of a difference that makes. Because again, they keep using the word enhancement. They are wanting to enhance what they already had. That's from Jones. That's from Shoop. So let's see if they can enhance it. Last question. I'll handle this. Somebody wanted to know if we would ever do a behind-the-scenes show or air the segments, the in-between segments that we do during commercial breaks, I guess like periscoping the thing. No. No, we won't. These guys know it. We won't do that because it's the same reason no one ever put a live mic on Kevin O'Neal during a game. Probably my language might be a bit salty in between segments. But thoughts on whether or not we should do that?
Live Periscope, live Facebook, I think the entire thing.
Perfect. Yeah, okay, great.
I'm for a best of sports source bloopers, kind of like the football follies. I think it would be.
We'd be the opposite, man. We just do a 51 shows of bloopers, and then one show of here's the ones where we actually got it right. It's 1 hour. So.
But just like reality TV, our behavior would change if we knew we were live on
That's
Periscope.
right. That's right. It would not be the same if we had
wanna
it
be
periscoped. That's it. All right. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next Sunday, 11 a.m. WATE 6 for the Sports Source.